Welcome to OLC Term 2B. This is Class 3. We are working on assignment number 2 and looking at 3 types of verbs. It is April 17th, 2024, and I am Julian Percy. Here is our contact information page. There we go. Okay. We need to send in work. Please send it to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. That way the secretary can log that you submitted the work. Please include your full name, the course name, the assignment number and name. If an assignment asks for both a rough and a good draft, please label which is which and include them both in the same email. If you want to talk to me in the studio today, 1-800-465-7144. If you want to join via Zoom, nnec.on.ca.zoom.us/j/924617355. The office number is 1-800-667-3703. Toll free. My extension is 2211, and I am here from generally noon to about 7 o'clock. My email is jillian.percy@nneschools.org. And my Facebook and YouTube are the same address, capital G, capital P-E-R-C-Y, space, capital W-A-H-S-A. There are no comments allowed on the YouTube. I have it turned off, but you can see previous courses. Facebook, you're welcome to message me and I'll be happy to respond. I don't check it as often as I check my email, however, so my email is actually a better way to contact me. Okay, we're going to dive into talking about verbs. Verbs in predicates. There are 3 main types of verbs. There's action verbs, there's state of being verbs, and there's helping verbs. So the first type of verb describes what someone is doing or their actions, things like run, dream, think, work, sleep, washing, hug, swim, fish, draw, and write. The second type of verb describes their state of being. The most common SOB verb is to be in all its different forms. Be, am, is, are, was, were, will be, have been. It's one of those strange verbs where most verbs kind of sound mostly the same and hang on to their base, but state of being verbs, be, does not for some reason. So it can be hard to recognize. The third type of verb is helping another verb, usually an action verb. And that ends up creating a verb phrase like, I am buying some groceries. Am is a state of being verb or a helping verb, and it's working with buying. He has been out all night, which is kind of like another 2 verbs working together. One is a being and one is a helping verb. Okay. So, I thought I had fixed this, but I had not. All right, before you guys kind of look at it, I am going to quickly undo it. And there we go. So if we look at the verb and decide what type it is, the verb is chopped. Is chopped an action, a state of being, or a helping? Well, you can picture chopped, right? Somebody is chopping something. That makes it an action verb, basically. My new boyfriend bought me a present. Is bought an action verb, a state of being verb, or a helping verb? Bought is a physical action. Okay. The cat is black. Is my verb. That's a state of being verb, right? It's describing the cat or talking about the condition. Like if I'd said the cat is cold, that'd be the condition of the cat. The old tree is falling down quickly. So falling is an action verb. Is a helping verb. So this one actually has 2 different types of verbs in the same sentence. It's actually pretty common in English. The next door neighbors might come over for coffee. Might and come are both verbs. Might is a helping verb. Okay. And then come, like as in come over, is I would call that an action verb, basically. The toy could arrive in the mail today. Could and arrive are our verbs. Could is a helping one, right? It's talking about the condition of something. And then arrive is an action verb. Babies will cry when hungry. Will and cry are both your verbs. Will is a helping verb. Oops. Oh, it doesn't want to, keeps on trying to do that. Sorry, hang on. Okay, got it. And then cry is our action. Canada is a democracy. Is our verb. And that's a clear state of being verb, right? It's describing the condition essentially of Canada. What condition is it? It's a democracy. The deer was brown with white spots. Was is another verb. Was is essentially a state of being verb. I'm sorry, I thought I had that turned off. There we go. Hang on a second. Oh, and yet not. Okay, my apologies. Okay, so look here at the common state of being verbs, right? And I'm putting this here because it is one of those ones that's kind of hard to recognize, okay? The present singular, present means it's happening right now, and singular means that it's only one, okay? Hang on a second. Okay. I am, you are, he is, she is, it is. Present plural. So it's still present, but it's happening to more than one person. We are, you are, they are. Past tense singular. So that happened in the past, then it's one person. I was, you were, he was, she was, it was. Past tense plural. So happened in the past, but to more than one person. We were, you meaning more than one person, like a group of people, and they were. Okay. Future tense. Future is happening in the future. And that could be for plural or for singular. I will be, you will be, he, she will be, it will be, we will be, they will be. That one's kind of a nice, easy one because it stays the same no matter what, just like the past tense plural does. We're going to talk more of some of the different verb tenses a little bit later, but some of the other forms that you might see are things like have been, has been, or had been. You might also see is being or are being, was being, or were being. Sorry, it's hard to say all those at once. Basically, those kind of state of being verbs describe the subject, or their state, or it sometimes can rename the subject. So I am hungry. She was beautiful. It is windy today. Windy's not the state of being verb. Windy is an adjective. My apologies. Hang on. Yep, we want is for that one. Is our state of being verb. We were lost. They are eager to learn. He was confused. Rename is often happening when the narrator or the writer is telling about a job or a role that the main subject is functioning in. And sometimes it might be used as a poetic metaphor, like I am the teacher. I is the subject. I'm giving you another name of the teacher. She is the baby in the family. Baby is kind of a renaming. They are the new nurses. It's talking about their job. We are driftwood on the ocean. So there I'm being kind of poetic. She is the auto mechanic. I'm telling what her job is. You are the boss. Same thing. We are bricks in the wall. And there we have poetic metaphor again. Okay. Other state of being verbs are things like seem, become, get, appear. If they're more describing something rather than describing an action, they're functioning as a state of being verb. It's only important to know if sometimes you're kind of looking through a sentence and trying to see if you've got a verb in there. Those ones can kind of be a little bit tricky in terms of knowing what they are. Some verbs can act as both action verbs and state of being verbs. Things like look, she looks tired, or she looks across the street. Different. It tastes rotten. She tastes the new soup. He feels hot. He feels love for music. Uh, Smell, it smells spicy. I can smell the wood burning. So one is more describing things and one is clearly expressing an action. Okay. Helping or auxiliary verbs. These are verbs that work alongside an action verb and create a verb phrase. Things like have washed. I have washed the dishes. The main helping verbs are do, which all its little conjugations are do, did, doing, does, done. Things like have, has, or had. Will just stays as will. And be we looked at previously. Some more examples might be things like, I am done cooking supper. I had finished my homework by 6 o'clock. I will leave in an hour. Some helping verbs are used to create special verb tenses, and these are sometimes called modal verbs or modal verbs. I'll try to say that right. They help show whether an action is possible, probable, a need, or an obligation, like something you have to do. And some examples of those type of verbs are things like can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, would, ought to, had better, used to, need, or dare. So some examples would be things like, I did clean my room. Mom needs to take her medicine. Your dad could take you to the hockey game. We should cook the hot dog soon. They might drop by for a visit later. Can you find the verb phrase in the sentence? She is beautiful. Is all by itself. And there it is. Just kind of underline it. The doctor is saving her life. So here we've got is and saving both working together as verbs. The nurse cleaned her wounds. Cleaned is our verb. I had been having nightmares in my new house. So that is something that is talking about the past, but it occurred for a while in the past. The snow was falling all night long. Was and falling are both working as verbs together there. That scary dog might bite me. Might and bite are working together as a verb phrase. He could have fallen on the slippery sidewalk. So here we've got 3 words working together to create a verb phrase. So I'm pointing these kind of out because sometimes when we're looking for verbs, we get really focused on action verbs and we're kind of not more aware of this sort of second and third level of verbs, and that can make it confusing when we're reading. Okay, so before I kind of begin here, we've been having a few problems with some assignments where people are getting them a little bit confused. So for some of those assignments that are really commonly confused or people are finding them frustrating, I've created an alternate version of the assignment. So I've still included the original version because some people may have already started it or maybe they prefer it this way. So I'm starting here. I'm going to name the original assignment, but then I'm going to talk about the new version, okay? And then I'll go on and explain how to do the original version if you want to hear that too. So for some reason, they created this page and they left a blank, and I get a surprising number of people who write a swear word in the blank and then hand it in to me. Please don't. I don't mark this. There's not really any point to it, okay? If you're talking about literacy goals, what are literacy goals? That's the point of this course, right? Most people don't really have any literacy goals, or they don't think they do anyways. What is a literacy goal? If you're reading this, then you can read, so that's not your literacy goal. But expressing yourself through writing is also useful and important, and it is a huge part of this course. This course has been designed to meet the requirements of the Ontario curriculum, but also to help you get the most out of everything you're interested in by improving upon your communication skills. It should not only help you with your schoolwork, but also in the real world. For this original assignment, you are to write approximately 2/3 to 1 page about your family and your community, where you're from, growing up, your experience in school, and any other details you'd like to share. The idea here is to get you to practice writing in sentences or paragraph format. The more writing you do, the better you'll be at expressing yourself in a variety of ways as is required in this course, especially through some journal entries, information paragraphs, news reports, and opinion pieces. Maybe you've heard the phrase, practice makes perfect. You're going to need to write and submit both a rough copy and a final copy for full marks. And again, be careful with spelling, grammar, and punctuation in your final copy. Keep in mind that capital letters also need to be used correctly. In this original version, there's a rough copy for 10 marks, and then you revise it and fix it and make it great and hand me in the final copy, which is kind of the part where we're having some problems. A lot of people are handing me in one copy, and they're very frustrated when I ask for a revised copy. So I've made some changes. So I'm going to tell you the changes now. Here's the alternate version of the assignment. This is what I call option 2. I think it's a lot simpler, and hopefully it will cause a lot less frustration. So in this option, we're not going to worry about a rough or a good draft, just your first draft. You can call it your rough draft, your first draft, I don't care. You're going to write 4 sentences on growing up with your family and your community, not anything to do with school. That's going to be your paragraph 1. Then you're going to write 4 sentences about school. It can be elementary or high school or both. That's paragraph 2. And then finally, you're going to write me 4 sentences about life after you left high school, or what you hope for in the future if you're still, I know if you're doing this course, you're kind of technically in high school, but I know a lot of people have gone on, they're married, they've got kids, that kind of thing. So depending on what age you are, you may have done a lot of living and want to talk about that a little bit. Okay, so here is looking at the marking scheme for this. 1 mark for each sentence that is relevant to the topic requested for that paragraph and is not repeating itself. That's a total of 12 possible marks. Each sentence that starts with a capital letter and ends with a period, question mark, or exclamation mark. There is a quarter mark each for a total of 3 marks. Each sentence has a subject, a noun or a pronoun that is doing the action, and I want you to underline the noun or the pronoun. A quarter mark each for a total of 3 marks. And then the 3 paragraphs are separated by 1 line, 2 marks. Total marks overall is 20 marks. So I'm going to give you a sample one. Oh, you know what? I made a little change there. Hang on a second. All right, we're going to talk about this and we're going to go with my original, not with the sample. Here's my paragraph. Sorry, I'm going to move this. I made this in one program and then you can't always see it in this other program. Here's paragraph 1, here's paragraph 2, here's paragraph 3, and you can see I left a space between each paragraph. So paragraph 1 is supposed to be about growing up. I grew up on the edge of town, close to a creek and woods and lots of open fields that are now filled with houses. My little brother, who was my constant companion, and we did everything together. We were lucky enough to have a pool nearby and learned to swim at a very young age. There was a playground with swings and a seesaw, and we hung out there all summer long when we were little. Paragraph number 2 should be about school. I loved going to school at first, mostly because my kindergarten teacher made things so much fun. In those days, kindergarten was mostly playing with toys, with a few worksheets that were quick to do. However, there was a lot of bullying at school as we got older, which made life pretty miserable in grade school. By the time we reached high school, people seemed to be a little nicer. We also got to take interesting courses like woodworking and architectural drafting. That part was a lot of fun as well. And then a paragraph about life after high school. After high school, I went on to study English and visual arts at university. I didn't really know what to do with myself when I graduated because I was pretty shy. I worked in bookstores for a little while, and eventually I got my teaching degree. Teaching transformed my personality and gave me much more confidence. Later on, I moved up here to the northern area, and I've been working in this area almost 18 years now. Okay, so we talked about paragraphs. Remember that paragraphs are normally organized by the topic. There is more information about how to structure a paragraph, but we're going to start here with this basic concept. All the sentences in the paragraphs should be on the same topic. You do not want a paragraph to jump all over the place to unrelated topics. So the topic of the sentence below is growing up in my community. Look at the sample, what sentences don't belong. So I am married now. Okay, right away, that doesn't belong because this paragraph is supposed to be about growing up. And I'm talking all of a sudden about stuff that's happening now. I grew up on the edge of town, close to a creek and woods and lots of open fields that are now filled with houses. My little brother was my constant companion and we did everything together. He lives in South Carolina now. Okay. Again, I'm suddenly talking about the present, but I'm not supposed to be. I'm talking about the past, so there's no point for this. We were lucky enough to have a pool nearby and learned to swim at a very young age. I haven't been swimming for a long time. Okay, same thing. I'm off topic here. I'm supposed to be talking about growing up, and this isn't about growing up. There was a playground with swings and a seesaw, and we hung out there all summer long when we were little. So because I want these paragraphs to be all on the one topic, you don't want to jump off into side topics, okay? Now, okay, so I'm sorry, I revised the one side and didn't revise the other side. So I'm going to make sure I use the one I originally created, because otherwise that would be bad. Let me see if I can make this work here. Okay. I'm hoping it will. Sorry, give me a second. Let me just see if I can make this work. Okay, I can. And I'm just going to fill that in with white so it kind of looks proper. It's all hanging off the edge there. My apologies. Okay, so 1 mark for each sentence that is relevant to the topic requested for that paragraph and not repetitive. 12 marks altogether. Each sentence starts with a capital letter and ends with a period, question mark, or exclamation point, quarter mark. Each sentence has a subject. Underline the noun or pronoun, a quarter mark for each of the sentences that have that. 3 paragraphs are separated by 1 line. I'm going to start there because it's the easiest, but you can see this person just wrote 1 big paragraph. So right away, they've lost those 2 marks. They don't have them. 0 marks there for already. Okay, so now I'm looking to see if they have 12 sentences. That's what we're aiming for. And I'm going to look for periods. 1 period, see here, 2 periods, 3 periods, 4 periods, 5 periods, 6 periods, and there should be 1 here, possible 7. Okay, now, so I'm going to write possible 7 here. Possible 7 marks. Is each one relevant to that paragraph, right? So the first paragraph, even though they didn't put 1 there, it was supposed to all be about the past. And I've got that line about married now. So that one isn't going to count. I'm going to cross that off because I shouldn't have it there. So it doesn't count for marks. Hang on. There we go. Oh, it's very light, but anyways. Growing up, switch to school, school, and then after school, after school, after school. So those are all other than 1. I'm going to take off 1 half a mark for the part that's not relevant. So I'm going to get 6.5 marks here for my sentences because I didn't write enough sentences and because I forgot to use periods, which we're going to talk about, right? Kind of dings you a little bit in terms of not remembering to use that. Now, this seems harsh, but I'm doing it here because lots of times later on, people are writing beautiful things, but they're forgetting to put periods and it's kind of impacting them. So we're going to tackle it right here. Each sentence starts with a capital letter and ends with a period, question mark, or exclamation mark, okay? So I did start the first one with a period and exclamation marks. There's 1. Second one, I started with a, sorry, not start with a period, start with a capital letter, but I forgot to end it with 1. So I would only get a half mark there, 1.5. Then I've got a capital and a period, 2.5. Ooh, no capital. So I'm still at 2.5. And there I am at 3. No capital. Okay, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. See, 5.5, no capital. Oh no. Okay. So, oh, I'm supposed to be a quarter mark. That's why I changed it. Okay. 5.5 divided by 2, 2.5. My math is terrible here. 2.75. I feel like I'm gonna have to look that over again. That's why I simplified it, I think. Okay. Quarter mark each for a total. I should have underlined the noun or pronoun. I didn't. I'm gonna do it right now. You know what? I'm gonna highlight it just so it's easy to see. I grew up on the edge of the town. My little brother is the subject of the next sentence. You could just do brother. I'm going to do the whole thing just because it's kind of easy to do. I loved school. At first, mainly because my kindergarten teacher made things so much fun. I could do my kindergarten teacher. It's also a subject. It's a subject of the second part of the sentence, but it's okay if you don't catch that. There, this is a funny one. There is a funny word because it doesn't seem like it's sounding like anything, but it's often a subject in a sentence. There or it. It was rainy. There were 7 cars outside. It's kind of one of those words you can just pass right over, but it would count as your subject. As we got older, which made life pretty miserable. We would be my other subject. Okay. Um, by the time we reached high school, people seemed to be a little nicer. After high school, I went on to study at university. I really didn't know. Oops, hang on, just trying to grab both words at once. I didn't really know what to do with myself when I graduated because I was pretty shy. Now, I isn't, um, you could grab it each time because it is acting as a subject either for the sentence or for the clause, but it's okay to just grab it once as well. Okay. We'll kind of talk more about those kind of sentences later on. And eventually, oh, I should have put the word here. I didn't. Eventually, I got my teaching degree. Okay. So we're going to pretend those were there all along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got 12 of those. So lucky me, I've got my 3 marks because I got some extra ones. Okay, sorry, 2.75 out of 3. That's not quite right. I know I've got to fix that, but I will have to do later. Okay, so now I would total this up. I've got 6.5 plus my 3, 9.5, 11.5, 12.25. Okay. So I passed that assignment, but because I didn't follow directions, I lost a lot of marks that I could easily have gotten, right? Because I wasn't very strict about the content. I was just mostly looking that you were following proper sentence structure and using capitals and periods. That was my big thing, okay? And that you were staying on the topic. So here, let me see. I got around a C-ish, right? But I could easily have gotten an A just by following the instructions. So please take the time, look at the instructions so that you can get this one easy marks. Now, for this kind of assignment, I am not asking for rough or good copy because I'm not really looking at the kind of finer details of writing. I'm just kind of looking at the really, really basic level here. I just want to make sure we're kind of all on the same page about what a sentence is. Remember that a sentence must have a subject and a verb. It must start with a capital letter and either a period, question mark, or an exclamation point. We also start names with a capital letter. The word I is also a capital letter. Capital letters should not be just kind of used randomly throughout the sentence for no reason. Also, is the punctuation used correctly? So how can I fix these sentences? I'm going to kind of just make it bold right now so it stands out. It is raining outside. Okay, what is the problems with that sentence? Well, first of all, I didn't start with a capital I. I got a lowercase I. I want to put a big I. It is raining outside. And then I want to end with a period. I don't mind the rain if it is warm. Okay. The word I has to be a capital and it's at the beginning. So both ways it has to be a capital. Now, warm, there's no reason for warm to be a capital. Okay. It's not a name. It's not the beginning of a sentence. So it can just stay a lowercase. My friend Jason is going to school to be an architect. Okay, so my does not need to be a little m. It should be a big M because it's the beginning of a sentence. By the same token, Jason is my friend's name. We wouldn't use a lowercase letter. We use a big letter to show that it is the beginning of a name. My friend Jason is going to school to be an architect. I made this sound like a question, but it's not really a question, is it? I'm telling you something. I'm not asking you anything. So I wouldn't put a question mark there. I'd put a period there. When I get home, I am going to make some supper. So I have my capital here, but I don't have my capital on my I. So I want that to be a capital I. When I get home, there's no reason for home to have a capital H. It's not the name of a place. And there's no reason for a capital M in the middle. So I'm gonna make it a smaller one. And then I should be a capital because it's a word that is always capitalized. And then supper would not really be capitalized either because it's not really the name of anything. Okay, so I would fix those sentences. Oh, I originally had this a little bit before things got moved around. Okay. For the most part, right now, don't put any semicolons and colons in until we've got time to talk about them more. Interrogative or question sentences end with a question mark. Imperative or exclamatory sentences, which we'll talk about more, can end with an exclamation point. They are not used that often in academic writing, but you might have wanted to use them if you were quoting somebody saying something. Declarative, where it's a telling sentence, or imperative, where it's a commanding sentence, both end with periods. 95% of your time in school writing, you're going to end your sentence with a period. So that's what I would go with if you weren't sure. Remember, the sentence must have a subject and a verb, must start with a capital letter. Oh, we did this already, didn't we? Oh, yeah, okay. Repetitive versus non-repetitive sentences. Occasionally I get somebody who will say, oh, 4 sentences, and they'll write almost the exact same sentence over and over again with just like a little bit of a change. I catch that. We're kind of at the age now where we're kind of past doing that kind of stuff. I expect you to be writing sentences that are non-repetitive, that are giving me new information, right? So if you wrote, I loved my family is the best. Essentially, that's kind of the same thing, right? I loved my family. We always had fun going camping. Okay, that's new information. I loved growing up in my community. My community was the best to grow up in. Okay, so that's again pretty repetitive. I loved growing up in my community. There was always a cousin or a friend outside to play with, so I was never lonely. Now, either one of these sentences is okay, but pick one. You don't need both of them because they basically have the exact same message. When you're writing a new sentence, try and give me new information, okay? Let me see here. Oop. Okay, now this is the problem. See, when I change from Google to PowerPoint, sometimes they don't quite line up with each other. Okay, anytime you're doing writing, I would always start with a little bit of brainstorming or planning ahead. I would never just pick up my pencil and dive down and start writing sentences. Now, every now and again, I get people who have a really hard time with the planning portion, but they're great at writing rough drafts. And if that's you, that's fine. But a lot of people find it easier to take a few minutes to write down some rough ideas and then to go ahead and try and make sentences. So before I started writing my paragraphs, I would think about 4 or 5 things I might want to say on each topic. I might literally kind of organize my page to have these 3 sections, which, by the way, originally, this is another one of those things. Okay, I can't. Okay, maybe I can. Okay, sorry, it was set up properly, and then okay, because Google keeps shutting off me. I was trying to use PowerPoint instead, but it has its own problems. So I would brainstorm some ideas for each one of these. And then it's really easy for me to kind of go through, look at my idea, and kind of craft a nice sentence about it. So understanding sentence structure is a major theme of the course. A lot of us were just taught a sentence expresses a complete thought, but that isn't super helpful. It is one part of the definition of a sentence, but there's a lot more to sentence structure than that. A working definition of a basic or a simple sentence is that it must have 3 things. Must have a subject, which would be the noun or the pronoun, like we've been talking about, a verb plus any connected words, and it expresses a complete thought. If it sounds like somebody stopped talking in the middle of a sentence and they didn't finish, it's not a complete sentence, right? Okay, so here I've got sentences in the bold writing, and then you would need to tell me, does it have a subject? Does it have a predicate? Is it a complete thought? All of these should be, I think, no, there's a few that don't. Not every, some of these are correct, but some of them are missing something. What is missing? Hated school growing up. Okay. Well, it starts with a verb. That's a good sign that I'm probably missing my subject because you can't tell who's doing the hating. I don't know. A lot of times people will just assume, well, of course I meant, and I get that, but in writing, you can't just kind of assume you've got to say it. My favorite part of Windsor, well, I know what we're talking about, but I don't know, there's nothing happening there. I'm just telling you, like, it's like I started the sentence, but didn't quite finish. So I'm missing my predicate. Nothing's happening. Was wishing for a long time that things would be different. Now, a lot of people would tell me this is a sentence because it's so long, but I still don't know who was wishing. I was wishing, my mom was wishing, the community was wishing. I don't know. So I need to know what the subject of the sentence is because they haven't told me. After all that happened. Okay, so here I really don't have a subject, a predicate. I don't have anything here. I've got kind of a few words put together. I don't know who it's about or what it's about, and I don't have any clue what's happening. There's not enough stuff there. The most beautiful place with a river, rocks, and a lovely beach. Okay, this is so close to a sentence that a lot of people might tell me it is a sentence, but you know what it's missing? There's no verb, right? It sounds like I'm about to say something. The most beautiful place with a river, rocks, and a beach. I could put a subject. I could say it is the most beautiful place with a river, rocks, and a lovely beach. Or I could say the most beautiful place with a river, rocks, and a lovely beach is where we go camping. But I don't have a complete sentence here at all, right? I'm missing something significant that would make it make more sense. Okay, so I'm not going to cover a whole bunch of complicated sentences yet. We'll cover that as we go along, just not today. So one major issue I see when people are writing me paragraphs is they try and write the entire paragraph, like 10, 15 sentences, and they haven't put any periods there. So if you start a new topic or a new subject, you've probably started a new sentence without realizing it. Since we're writing these paragraphs about ourselves, a good hint is to check on the word I or possibly we. Often, not always, but often it can be a hint that you've started a new sentence. So if you find yourself starting it all over again and telling me about a new thing, it's probably a sign that you've started a new sentence and you need to make sure to end the previous one with a period before you start your new one. Okay, so here is an example. This is one where I have a run-on sentence and I need to break it down into a bunch of simpler sentences. Oh, okay. We're going to skip over this. This is one of those things. I'm going to put a little heart on this so I remember later. Sometimes what happens is I need to undo all the stuff we did, and I didn't. Ouch, makes my eyes hurt. Okay, so now that is that assignment. It's pretty simple, okay? I will worry about the marking, but basically you're looking for, hang on, let me go back to the good copy instead of the poor copy. Oh, where is it? Okay, a paragraph on growing up, paragraph on school, a paragraph on life after school. Leave me a line between each paragraph. Remember to use capitals and periods. That is the most basic way I can put that, okay? So try and work on that one first. Now, if for some reason you've already started the other one and you want to take a look at that, I will walk you through that now for you. However, if you're just going to do the simpler version, you are welcome to turn off your computer and or your YouTube or whatever you're watching this on, and then just go ahead and start working on the assignment. But if you want to keep on, here is the original assignment. I started with talking about brainstorming. You might want to think about the major topics or areas you discuss. They did give you ideas. The suggested areas were community, growing up, school experiences, or any other topic. It's very similar to what I've done. I've tried to simplify it a little bit, okay? And here I did some demo brainstorming, things about my community, things about growing up. I didn't really write about school. I'm not sure why. And then any other topics I might want to talk about. Okay. Brainstorming is not the same thing as your rough draft. Every now and again, I get people who will hand me in this, but it's fine to hand it in, but I don't really give any marks to it, right? I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the rough draft for this assignment, for this version. Brainstorming could just be one word, or it could be a doodle. It's any length that is helpful to you. It does not need to be complete sentences. There is no concern for spelling, grammar, or punctuation. It is not handed in and it is not marked. I don't mark it. A rough draft must be in full sentences. It must be in paragraph format. It must be a certain length. In this case, 2/3 to a full page, which is a lot of writing. It will be handed in and it will be marked. It's worth 10 marks. Okay. So here's an example of brainstorming from a previous assignment. Here's an example of a rough draft. You can see the difference, right? One is clearly just kind of little random notes for yourself. One is written in sentences, okay? So this is what we're looking for, not this, okay? Let me see here. Going through a paragraph again, we talked about paragraphs have a common theme or topic. Writers can show a new paragraph is started in two possible ways: by leaving a space between one paragraph and the next, or by putting an indent at the beginning of each paragraph. Putting a space between one paragraph and the next is becoming far more common these days, especially because of computers, right? That extra line really helps when you're on your phone, whereas that indent can be actually pretty hard to see. Having said that, if you're doing handwriting, the indent is more common. Either way is totally acceptable to me, unless an assignment specifically asks for you to do it one way or the other. Like some business writing, you have to leave that space. So here's an example of the difference if you haven't seen it before. Here, there's just a little tiny bit of space before they started the first sentence of the paragraph, and then the rest of them go back to the margin. That's the indents. Here, same thing, but they've got a space between. Okay, that's the, do I have, no, okay. So this is what's pretty common these days. I would just stick with this because it's probably the easiest. Okay, so formal paragraph format, it would be great if you used it for this assignment. You don't have to, but it sort of lends itself to it. For this one, you would have a topic sentence for each paragraph, 3 or 4 details about the topic, and then a concluding sentence. Sometimes they kind of characterize this format as tell them what you're going to talk about it, and then summarize what you talked about. And again, you're looking at 2/3 to a full page. One paragraph would be about my community, one about growing up, one about school experiences, one about what's happening now. This is all if you're doing the original assignment. And then here's an example of a paragraph on a slightly different topic. I I I put the paragraph parts here and then kind of lined them up with the colors. So my topic sentence is my favorite part of high school was always an art class. That's your top bun. Your bottom bun should echo the top. Art class seemed more like a place for fun than work, which is why I loved it so much. And then I gave you the details. It was such a nice change to be working with images rather than words. My favorite teacher's classroom was like an explosion of color and crazy objects for us to draw. It was like walking into an antique store. Now, here, I actually used 2 sentences to explain that detail. That's totally fine. That's a great way to get more sentences into your paragraph. Detail number 3, we got to work with so many different mediums: oil pastels, chalk, charcoal, watercolors, and acrylics. It was so fun to explore them all. Actual paragraph format. Now, of course, we wouldn't actually split them all up like this. We would run them together into proper paragraph format below. I'm not going to read it all over again, but you can see that's how we would see a paragraph, right? Not in a list. Okay, so you would do that. You'd hand the rough draft in. I'd look at it and mark it out of 10. And then you would take it and look at some revisions. I would leave some space, leave a little bit of space between your paragraphs so you've got room to add things, and I've got room to write notes. And then I would take a picture of it so I have room to then mark all over my picture or mark all over my original so I can change it, but I still have the clean copy for me to mark, right? I need a clean copy, but I would want to go ahead and do some editing because for this version of the assignment, the original version, I look for changes between the rough copy and the good copy. And if there aren't any changes, then you lose marks because you haven't done what the assignment asked, which is why I've made the assignment simpler. But if you want to do the original, this is the original. The first thing to do when you're revising any type of writing is always to check, does it make sense? Is it clear what they're trying to say, or do you need to add some details or reword it? Sometimes when we're writing quickly, we might skip some of the little words, or we might write a really long sentence that seemed fine at the time, but now seems confusing. Second, we need to check out our sentence structure. And those are the most common grammatical errors in any writing. Third, we check for punctuation, capitalization, and spelling errors, which we talked about in the other assignment as well, right? So here I've got some original sentences and they have some problems. Are there words missing? Are there words that got used twice or places where the meaning is confusing? My favorite spot was down by beach where the where the rocks can sit on to watch the sunset. So there's some problems there. So I fixed it a little bit. My favorite spot was down by the beach near the rocks. The rocks are where I can sit to watch the sunset. This is what I mean by a word that is used twice. Sometimes somebody ends a sentence with a word and then they sort of decide, oh, I'm going to start the sentence the same way. And rather than actually writing the word over for the new sentence, they just kind of like think of it twice. But as the reader, I don't know that, and it's kind of confusing to read. So make sure you actually write it twice if you use it in one sentence and the next sentence. Art was never not good at it, never like it, never care about it at all. Okay, that's how I might talk to a friend, but it does not really work as academic writing, right? I was never good at art, but I never liked it or cared about it. Or I could say because I never liked it or cared about it, right? That sounds more like the kind of sentence I would write out of school, which is what we're doing, right? We went biking the pit. They said it was okay. So first of all, I don't even know who we is. I don't know who they is. And I would say biking to the pit, or we went biking at the pit. Our parents said it was okay. I might even change this to say my brother and I went biking to the sand pit. That way I actually know who it's talking about, right? So you've got your two options for this assignment. This is assignment number 2. You can do the version that's in your unit, or you can do the simpler version, which I have. Where is it? 4 sentences on your family, 4 sentences about school, 4 sentences about life after school. Okay. I'm looking for 1 mark that is relevant to the topic, quarter mark for each sentence that has a capital letter and ends with a period, quarter mark for each sentence that has a subject. If you could underline it, that'd be great. And you've put a line between each paragraph. So this is very, very simple. It's an easy way to get 20 marks. All right. Tomorrow we will look at assignments 3, 4, and 5. 3 and 4 are exactly the same as in your unit. I'm just going to explain them a little bit because sometimes people find them kind of confusing. And then we'll look at assignment 5. Okay. Hope you have a good night. Give me a phone call if you find there's anything you want me to help you understand.